Hi everyone, my name is Keisha Ann Mullings Brown from Good Courage, and we recently launched a webinar series titled Bitter or Sweet Sex in Marriage. Unfortunately, the very first presentation did not record as smoothly as we had hoped. So we only have a part of that recording for you. But we believe that the information that is present is still very valuable, and for that reason, we've chosen to share the latter part of that presentation. Our presenter was Chandra Dew, a licensed professional counselor who is also the founder of Community Care Counseling. Enjoy.
So, PTSD is a form of anxiety. And what I found out is a lot of people who have experienced sexual trauma have PTSD, but they just don't know it. And so that's a really good reason to figure out if you are actually experiencing some of these symptoms. For example, intrusive memories, like it just keeps coming back. And it doesn't always have to come back during the event of intimacy, but a lot of times it will. Reoccurring nightmares or even flashbacks. Flashbacks is more like you're right in it, like it's happening again, where memories is it's not happening again, but you are reminded of it. Avoidance. This is a huge one in relationships. Staying away from anything that reminds them of the trauma. Remember, these are sometimes unconscious. You don't realize that's what you're doing, but you're staying away. Well, how can you not be reminded of sexual trauma, that event, if you're being touched possibly in the same way? So avoidance is a symptom that I think almost everyone has when it comes to sexual trauma. They don't want to be reminded. So therefore, they don't want to be with their spouse in that way. Increased arousal, startling easily. What I discovered is a lot of people will, if someone touches them from behind, they would jump. They're very jumpy. And then there goes the whole body out of whack. You're not relaxed. You can't enjoy yourself. That's another reminder. Changes in thoughts and feelings. There's an ongoing distorted belief about yourself or others. Like the world is bad. I mean, isn't that easy to believe the world is bad after someone took advantage of you that way? But the problem is, it's an ongoing thought. How can you enjoy yourself if the world is bad? Or even about yourself. I have so many, especially children, who believe that they're at fault for the sexual trauma. They feel they are bad. They feel they are dirty. So how can they grow up and enjoy that life that God has planned with your spouse? There's recurrent feelings of fear, horror, anger, guilt, shame. That's supposed to be shame. I think it's shame, but guilt and shame. You can't enjoy yourself with guilt and shame, or hopelessness. That's where God comes in. Where God comes in, there's hope. Loss of interest in once enjoyable activities. So if you don't do the things you used to do, or don't enjoy doing the things you used to do with your spouse, how can you connect with each other? And that's one of the things that I help after we work through some of the natural responses of the body. We work through controlling those and understanding them first, and then controlling them, and then getting back to doing the enjoyable activities that connect you together. You feel detached from others, like no one can understand what I've been through. People say that all the time, but there are a lot who have gone through what you've gone through. And that's where shame can keep you from opening up and being able to talk to someone who does understand you. Struggling to maintain close relationships, even outside of your spouse relationship. Sometimes people can't be close because, like earlier I said, the trust is gone. If you can't trust God, if you believe the lie from Satan that God allowed this to happen, then you're not going to trust people. You're not going to be comfortable around people. Difficulty experiencing positive feelings like joy or satisfaction. PTSD can have you in a place where you don't even enjoy it. A lot of people tell me they laugh on the outside, but they're always crying on the inside. And we want you to have real feelings, loving feelings, being satisfied the way God plans you to in marriage. We want you to have that. And so a lot of times we will ask you to seek a counselor. I noticed that I think I didn't get to see the final polls, but there were a lot of people. At one time was 100% that no one has gone to a counselor, a professional counselor, to help them, because a lot of times what you're going through can be PTSD, or the next thing that I want to talk about is depression. Well, I think I went a little too fast. This is just some facts. PTSD and depression usually are co-occur. That means usually if you have PTSD, you have depression. Usually you have depression, you have some form of anxiety. Survivors of sexual assaults are 6 times more likely to suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, 3 times more likely to suffer from depression. Here, like I said, I started off with women. A woman who experienced sexual trauma showed higher levels of depression than women who experience other types of trauma. So I really want you to take that in. Okay, let me see. I think I lost, oh, here we go. I skipped one. There we go. Symptoms of depression. A lot of times, and when I say depressed, I'm not talking about you're sad for a moment. I'm talking about the physical body and the physical mind is depressed. You, most of the day, almost every day, you're sad. I have people tell me that all the time, and guess what? They tell me no one knows. And this is a form of, a lot of times I will bring in family members or friends so they can understand what this person's going through. It's a mood that sad, hopelessness, empty, loss of interest and pleasure. Now, make sure you're writing this down. If this is something that you experience, write this down. This is very important. Fatigue, not wanting to get out of bed. I hear that all the time. I went through a depression. I was married. It wasn't a marriage of God. And I went through so much. I finally divorced him, but I went through depression. And I remember saying to myself, I don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to go to work. Now, fortunately, as a counselor, I knew what to do once I heard myself say that. But that's what's so important for you to understand psychologically what you're saying to yourself. Because that's a form of depression. insomnia or hypersomnia. Some people can't sleep. Some people sleep too much. They can't get out of bed. Significant weight loss or gain, 5% of the body in a month, can be something that you can detect whether you have depression or not. Significant decrease or increase in appetite. Decrease in appetite I see more often, but I do see people who increase in appetite. And there's a part in the brain that we call overexcitability. If you're feeling so low, the brain wants you to find something that makes you feel better. And so sometimes eating food makes you feel better. And so it will take over and you can't control your appetite. Feelings of worthlessness or inappropriate guilt nearly every day. There's people who feel they are not worth, they compare themselves and they feel they're not worth as other people, or they have guilt about everything because at some point they start to feel or believe that everything's their fault in depression. Diminished ability to think or concentrate or indecisiveness. A lot of times when they're depressed, they can't even think of the simplest things what to do. They can't solve problems. So you can see how that can affect a relationship. Reoccurrent thought of death, reoccurrent suicidal thoughts. Do you know that most people at some point in their lives think about suicide? Now, because you think about suicide doesn't mean you will do it. Now, thank goodness for God, because my experience is Christians tend, if they have the thoughts, they would not do it. God gives us value. So let me see. So trauma is a fact of life. It does not, however, have to be a sentence, a life sentence. And that's where we go to God. God is greater than the condemnation I feel. If our hearts, 1 John 3:20, if our hearts condemn us, we know that God is greater than our hearts and he knows everything. I must be aware of Satan's schemes to control my responses by immersing my life in scripture. Remember what I was telling you? Unconsciously, we do things that in counseling, we can teach you what you're doing, bring it to your conscious, and then you can actually use the scriptures to control you. Ephesians 6:11, put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. Because we know God did not want us to have a joyful life with our spouses. I can communicate pure boundaries in my relationship by speaking the truth in love. Ephesians 4:15, instead, speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become in every respect the mature body of him who is the head, that is Christ. We need to communicate. We need to let our spouse know how we really feel so you can work through it. Knowing my thoughts will control my actions and responses. I must allow God to transform my thinking. In Romans 12:2, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. So, what I would love for you to do, if there's anything in what I talked about, whether depression, anxiety, PTSD, any of those symptoms, I would love for you to try to find out what you can do with that. Find a counselor. We do have a program, I do have a program to help people who cannot afford counseling. So remember that. I will be talking about that more next week. Is that next week? Yes, next week. I will be going over some of these symptoms and how I use the Bible for you to correct those symptoms. So I hope this has helped you be aware of some of the things that sexual trauma can get in the way of having a wonderful sexual experience with your partner. Thank you so much. God bless you. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Do not forget to leave any questions, okay? Because I'm going to go over those questions and I really want to answer some of those. Have a good day. Bye-bye.